Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful disco ball pendant. You can turn it into earrings, necklace, pretty much anything, but you can see you have a beautiful crystal accent, so stay tuned and we'll get started. Hi guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to make the round disco ball pendants with all the beautiful jewels set into them with epoxy clay. So for this project, you're going to need your diamond glaze. You'll need some type of epoxy clay. I'm choosing to use my quick steel again. You'll need a head pen. You'll need some type of gemstones. These are the Swarovskis. I really like these because they have a lot of color. However, there are a couple different options out there for you. This is an example. These are the nail decal ones. These will work just fine. I just happen to like the light reflection on these particular Swarovskis, but again, any of these will work. These are a lot more inexpensive than the Swarovskis. This sheet will usually run you about $7 to $8 versus this whole tin for, I think I paid $1.88, maybe $2 tops. So that's something to consider when selecting what type of bling you're going to add to it. You'll also need some type of pigment powder. I'm using the luster powder from Pearlex. This is the luminescent. And I think it'll complement my luminescent stones here real nicely. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so I have my epoxy here, my epoxy clay. And I apologize, I forgot to mention this previously. You're going to need some type of paintbrush. I'm also going to be using the back of this paintbrush to make the golf ball effect on my piece. If you have a stylus will work. Stylus actually would probably work a lot better, but this is what I had available for me today. And you will need some type of head pen. As I said previously, I like to reuse my head pens when I only use a small piece of it. So this is just a piece that I've cut down for use. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is break off a chunk of our epoxy clay. And usually when you see the disco balls, they're usually not very big, so I'm going to stick with that same type of look, and I'm not going to make mine real huge. I'm probably going to do it maybe, that looks like a good size. It's about the size of maybe a dime. So you're going to take your clay and you're going to start to mix it up. As we previously discussed in other tutorials, you're going to want to make sure that the striation color goes away and that it becomes all one solid color. Okay, I'm going to mix it up. This usually only takes a few seconds. The more you roll it, the more you fold it over, the quicker it goes. You see I still have a little bit of darkness in there, so I want to continue folding it and have it get on my fingers, but that's okay. Okay, we folded it a few times. When I kind of break it up a little bit, you can see that it's pretty much one full solid state. So you're going to go ahead and roll this into a ball. You're going to want to get it as close to a ball as you can. If you want to do an oblong or an egg shape, those will work well. I'm going to do a ball. Okay. That looks like that's fairly round, and unfortunately when working with the clay it's never going to be completely round, so you just want to get as close as you can, or as close as you feel comfortable with. Remember, you do have a limited time to work with this epoxy clay, so you don't really want to stress out too much about getting it perfect, because you're going to cover it up and you're not really going to notice. So I'm going to stick my head pen in, and I kind of bent mine a little bit, so I'm just going to tap it into place. I'm going to take the back of my paintbrush and I'm going to start putting little indents in it. And we're going to make like a golf ball on it. And what this is going to do is make a nice place for my stones to set. And you can do as many as you want or as few as you want. It really kind of depends. I kind of like the really random effect versus doing a specific pattern, but if you want to go along in a straight line, that works too. And if you do start to push too hard, you'll notice your pen will start to slide down. That's okay. We're just going to go ahead and reset it. Sorry about the light there, guys. I'm trying to work on that. Okay. That looks like, oh no, I need a few more over here. And again, for mine, there's really no rhyme or reason. You can definitely go ahead and and put them in a nice neat order, just really what your preference is. I really kind of like them to be a little bit more randomized, kind of makes the piece a little bit more personal. And if you end up putting some holes in here, or some golf ball indents that you don't like, it's not a big deal. You can easily just kind of cover them up, or when you put the paint on them, you don't necessarily have to set a stone in there. So I think I'm pretty happy with that, and my piece is starting to heat up, so I know it's the reaction's starting, so I'm pretty much going to have to stop where I'm at. One place I forgot to check to put my little indents is the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and push a little in. Make sure I'm getting all the way around the piece. Okay, we're going to go ahead and let that set up. This usually takes about 3 to 5 minutes for this particular brand of epoxy clay. If you're using other ones, it may take longer. Some of them do take up to 24 hours. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and as soon as it's done, we'll take a look at it. Okay, so it's been about 5-6 minutes, and our disco ball piece has set up. The epoxy clay is nice and hard. So what I've done here is taken the luminous pigment powder, and I've laid down some of my diamond glaze, and I'm just going to mix them up so we can go ahead and start to paint them. Now this is a really nice silvery color with a little bit of green and pink hues in it. So I don't know how well we're going to pick this up on camera here, but I'm going to try to do the best I can. Now, one of the things that I found from a previous tutorial I did is whenever you're using the darker epoxy clays with lighter pigment powders, it is going to take a little bit more to coat it. So I do have a decent amount laid down here, especially for the size of my piece. Okay, have a nice coat. Take my piece, we're going to paint it, we're going to fill in all those divots. So like I said, if there's divots on there that you're not necessarily quite happy with, it's not really going to matter. Those are more or less just like a holding area for some of the gems. The gems I am using are flat backed. So it's just to make a nice little recess if you so choose. If you don't really like it, you can just go ahead and paint over them and fill them in. It's not a big deal. Okay, I'm going to coat this piece. I'm going to get a nice heavy coat. And this is probably going to take 3 or 4 coats only because the clay is dark and the color I'm using is a very light clay. But you can see the kind of silver hues, a little bit of green hues starting there. You can see my little golf ball effect. Okay, we're just going to fill it in. And it's okay to fill in those holes. Those are really there just as a placeholder. It'll also help give a little bit of depth when we go to lay the gems in. And you can either completely cover up all of the gray, or you can leave some of the gray showing. I am going to choose a handful of areas where I'm going to leave a little bit of the gray clay showing. It's still going to have paint over it. It's just not going to have as much. And the reason being, I kind of really like the effect, and to me it's going to give a little bit more of a marble look to it. Okay, so we have that there. Now this is going to take a couple minutes to set. Again, I'm probably going to end up putting about 3 or 4 more coats on it in order to keep the video not quite as long as some of the ones I've done in the past. I'm going to go ahead and finish this off screen, but it's probably going to take about 3 or 4 more coats. Okay, we're back with our disco ball. What I did here is, this is still sitting on the head pin. I just poked a hole in my Dixie cup with the head pin on it just to kind of make a little resting base so I can stick my hand on it. It's going to make it a little bit easier when I start sticking these gems on it. But this is the back of the same cup I was using for my diamond glaze. You can still see some of the residue here, which is fine because we're going to be using it to attach the gems. Okay, so now that this is the diamond glaze is dried, I have my gems here, and these guys kind of get a little messy, so you're probably going to have to spend a little bit of time after you're done with your project picking them up. But I do have my little Swarovskis here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the extra diamond glaze that I have in here. I'm going to stick it onto the piece. so. Let's try that again in frame here, like this. Okay. And you can use tweezers or fingers. I'm going to try fingers first. I'm just going to come over here and lay it in one of my dimples of where I applied the diamond glaze. Okay, just like that. We'll try the next one with tweezers and see how well that works. We may end up going back to fingers, but we're not sure yet. Okay, brush again. And I'm going to go to my next little golf ball imprint there. Have my gem. Now, these tweezers that I'm using are really handy because they do have a little magnifying glass, so if you're working with small areas, it does help, or working to get small pieces. I'm going to find a piece right there where I put my color. Oops, I missed it just a little bit. Use my finger and push it up. Back into place. Oh, I think it already stuck. Let's try that again. When you're doing this, sometimes the diamond glaze will run just a little bit. It's not a big deal, but if you're really particular about where you're laying your pieces, they can start to move, which can get a little frustrating. If you're kind of just going where things fall, it's not a big deal. Okay. And these are flat back gems, so they're fairly easy to work with. I think you can get these at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, online. There's a number of places to get them. But again, the Swarovski ones are always going to be a little bit more. Okay, got my next gem on the next spot, and we're just going to drop it into place. See, we're starting to make the bling pattern show up. When we're done, this whole piece is going to be covered, or at least mostly covered, with the Swarovski crystals. I'm going to do a few more here. And putting the golf ball imprint to them does make it a little bit easier because it makes it a nice little home for these guys to rest in. Okay. Go find our next little spot, and I think this time I'm going to do a couple in a row just for the sake of making the video a little bit shorter. Okay, and you're going to continue laying these all the way around the piece. If you get a spot, sorry about that guys, if you get a spot that you don't necessarily like them in, it's not a big deal, just peel them up and find a new home for it. Right there where I have my glue. Okay, we're going to continue this all the way around until you're satisfied, or at least until or my specific one, until I'm satisfied with how much bling I have on there, and we'll take a look at the final product once everything's dried. Okay, I got all the crystals added to my piece here. As you can see, there's a lot of shine going on there. I did leave some space so you can still see the color of the paint. Now, one thing I do want to mention is for the Swarovskis, I probably ended up using maybe about 30 of these. So you definitely do want to make sure when you start the project you have enough crystals to complete it. Seeing a lot of little shine there. So one of the things I'm going to do is normally I like to seal my pieces with some type of sealant. However, with the Swarovskis, I really don't want to do anything that's going to compromise the light reflection on them because they're so pretty. You know, even though the glue dries clear, it really is going to take away from the luster that they have. So what I'm going to do is use my diamond glaze that I have left over, and I'm just going to really kind of underneath them, going along each side of the crystal, is I'm going to make sure that there's a lot of this diamond glaze, not only just under it, but on the side of it. So essentially we're almost painting the piece twice. And one of the reasons why, as you can see, I have this little guy, I don't know, a little hard to see on camera, but I have this little guy right here, and he's actually lifting up a little bit. So I just really want to make sure that they're nice and protected. So we're going to really kind of, I guess you want to say, glop some of this in there. And if you accidentally get them on the crystals, or a little bit of the glue on the crystals, it's not that big of a deal, because you can, as long as it's still wet, you can wipe them down. Which I actually will do. I'll use my finger to wipe them down, or I'll get a Q-tip and wipe them down. And if it dries and you don't happen to catch it until afterwards, you can use water and a Q-tip, and it'll take a little bit of elbow grease, but you'll be able to get it off. Okay, we're just going to fill it in, make sure that they're nice and protected on there, and that is the disco balls. These make beautiful pendants, earrings. You could make a bracelet out of them if you had enough of them. I don't know, to me it's a lot of time to lay those crystals. It probably takes about 15-20 minutes to lay the crystals, at least get them in an orientation that you like. But that's how you make those disco ball pendants. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Having a hard time finding material is not a problem. Let me know. I definitely have some alternate solutions. And please post pics of your projects. Thanks for watching.